Welcome back. We are currently on Unit 2, Lesson 1. So in the previous one, we talked about how to set up your virtual machine. I hope you got that all set up correctly. If you did have a problem, go ahead and put a comment in the comment section. I'll help you out as soon as I can. So in order to start our machine, you can always just double click on the machine here in this program called VirtualBox. On this main screen, you'll see all the different boxes that you've installed. So you can just double click it and it'll open up the box here. I've already got my box opened up here. Before we jump into how to use this in the terminal, I'm actually going to pull up some slides here so we can get a background on what we're going to be dealing with today. So today we're going to be covering commonly used commands in the terminal. We'll also practice navigating the file system, and then we'll also be able to view the context of the contents of text files in the terminal, and then we'll put it all together. Maybe we'll chain some commands together, make some more complicated commands. Here is a brief overview of a handful of the commands we're going to be covering today. We will be going over more. Don't memorize these right now because we're going to get some hands-on practice. But I just want to go over briefly what we're going to be going over. So there's this command called pwd. It shows us where we are, because remember in the terminal we can't really see where we are unless we type anything into the terminal. Everything is text-based. And then we also have to know how to list out files, show what files and directories are in the current location. We can also change directories, so we can go up or down a directory. We can also create new directories using this make directory command. We'll also use something called remove directory, rmdir, and then we'll create blank text files. And then we'll also remove files, clear the terminal, move files to a different location. So how can I move it from this directory to a different location? And then also, how do we copy a file somewhere? So let's dive right into it and let's do some examples here. So I've got my terminal window up here on my VirtualBox. Hope you can all see that. So the first command that I want to talk about is called pwd. It stands for print working directory. I'm going to go over what this is later. Essentially, this is a file path. We'll go into way more detail about that later. But for now, just know pwd shows you where you are. Now, there's not a whole lot other than the directory. So let's do some other commands and we'll come back to this command, see how useful it is. So within this directory, I'm in the home Cybertrack directory. I'm going to list out the file, so I can do that with ls. So from here, I can see we've got a few items in here. We see a documents folder, it looks like, a downloads folder, pictures folder, public tools, and videos. So we've printed out the current working directory. We've listed out the contents of that directory. And what if we wanted to go into one of these other directories? Now, by the way, Ubuntu will show you a directory with the blue color. So if it's blue, and this will be different across different Linux distributions, but with Ubuntu, blue is going to mean directory generally. If it's a white color, generally it's going to mean a text file. Different colors will mean different things. So if I wanted to go into the documents directory, right? Currently I'm in home, Cybertrack, and I want to go into documents. I'm going to use a command called change directory. So cd, short for change directory, and I will type in the directory name that I want to go into. So let me do that again. cd space capital documents. Linux is case sensitive, unlike Windows, so you have to type it with the correct capitalization. And then you can hit enter. And if I type in pwd again, notice my path is a little bit different now. So now I'm in home Cybertrack documents instead of home Cybertrack. So if I do an ls, there's nothing in this directory. I'm going to go back, so cd, to go back a directory, this is something you should definitely remember. You're going to want to use a cd space dot dot, which is short for previous directory or one directory above, also known as the parent directory. So if I go cd ... that takes me up one directory. So if I do pwd, I'm back where I started, home Cybertrack. Now what if I did cd space dot? Technically that is a correct command, but it doesn't take us anywhere, because the dot means this location. It means right here exactly where I am. So essentially what I said was change directory to where I am right now. So we didn't move anywhere. This is going to be important later. Right now you might not see the importance of it. I'll show you a lot of applications for it later when we get into scripting and executing commands and different programs. All right, so we showed you how to do print working directory, list the files, and then also change directories. What if I wanted to make a directory? So I do ls again to show the current contents of this directory. What if I wanted to make a music directory? So I can do something called make directory, mkdir, short for make directory, space music. And then if I do ls again, it's going to show that I have a new music folder there. Now I can actually go into that folder and then hit enter. And then I can do ls again. Obviously there's nothing in there, so I'm going to go back to the previous directory, cd space ... and that shows that I'm right back where I'm at. Now you'll notice sometimes I'm not typing out the complete thing. How am I doing that? This is a cool little shortcut you should definitely memorize. So in order to, they call it tab complete, so I'm going to do ls. Let's say I wanted to go into the pictures directory here. I can type in cd space capital P I, or capital PI. So I type the first two letters or three letters, doesn't really matter. And the second that Linux decides that is a unique part of a file, then I can hit the tab key and it'll auto-complete it for me. But watch this, if I do cd space P, right, picture starts with a P and public starts with a P. So I hit tab and it doesn't complete. So I have to start typing a little bit more and then it'll finally autocomplete. I can do print working directory, shows my directory again. Also, if you need a couple blank lines on your screen, you can always hit enter. It doesn't do anything, it just moves the screen up a little bit. There are a couple other things that we can do to clean up the screen content, but we'll get into that in a second. So one of the next commands here is actually clear. So if we type in clear, this will clear the entire terminal screen. So if you wanted to take some notes, go ahead and pause the video now. So I'm going to clear the screen here. I hit enter and it clears the screen. So currently I'm in home Cybertrack pictures. If I wanted to go up from pictures to Cybertrack, remember I do cd space ... and that takes me back home. This is going to be something you're going to get very familiar with. You're going to navigate the file system. It's going to become second nature. And so what I want to do now is show you how to remove a directory. There are a couple ways to do this, but I'll show you one way here. If I wanted to remove that music directory, I can do rmdir, short for remove directory. And I'm going to do my tab complete here. And if I do ls again, you'll notice the music directory is gone. Now the thing about remove directory is it deletes the directory, but if there were any files or other directories within it, it will also delete everything within it. So you definitely want to be very careful when you use the remove directory command. What if we want to make a blank text file? So currently I'm in home Cybertrack. Let's say I wanted to go into my documents folder. I can go cd space capital documents, tab complete, and I do ls. There's nothing there currently. I can use a command called touch to create a new file. So what if I wanted to call the file my underscore file.txt? I I type in ls again, and you'll notice I can list out the contents of the documents folder. This newly created file that we made is right here. There's nothing inside of it yet, but we have created a new blank text file. So if we want to remove the file, I can type in rm space my tab complete my underscore file.txt. I type in ls again, and the file is gone. If I wanted to create multiple files in one line, I can actually do this. Touch file1.txt, file2.txt, file3.txt. I start with the touch command, which says create a blank new file, and I can just add multiple files split up by a space. And I do ls again, and you'll notice that we have file 1, 2, and 3 right there. Something to keep in mind though is that you cannot have spaces in your file names in Linux. You can, but it's highly discouraged. I'll show you why. What if I tried to make a file like this? So touch, let's call it file7, file7.txt, and then let's call another one file007.txt. Let's do file space 8.txt. Let's see what happened here. I type in ls, and it created a new file called 7.txt. And then it created a file called file. So Linux will look at spaces as a separator for the next argument. So touch can accept multiple parameters. In this case, we're creating multiple files at the same time, but Linux will see the space as a separator. So it's saying, okay, create a file called file, and a file named 7.txt, and a file named file007.txt, and file, and 8.text. So if we did want a space in that, I'll show you another way to do that another time, but this is what I will tell you. I'm going to clear the screen here. You generally never use spaces in file names in Linux. The reason is you're using a text-based editor, and you always want to be able to access these files easy. You can go ahead and use an underscore to simulate a space, so that's what a lot of people do. So file underscore 007.txt, and then that will create the file with the underscore. So that's one thing you should always keep in mind. Don't create files with spaces in them. What if I wanted to move a file somewhere? So remember, I am currently in Home, Cybertrack, and then I went into the Documents folder. Within the Documents folder, I have all these file names. They don't contain anything. Let's say I wanted to move file 007.txt back one directory. So what I could do is I could type in move file 007.txt, and then I'm going to specify the location I want to send it to. So I can do .. And what this means is it says move this file, right, which is right here, currently in the Documents folder, move it here. Now remember, when we did cd ... that meant move back one directory, or go up to the parent directory. This is referring to the exact same thing. I am moving this file up one directory. So if I hit enter, and I type in ls again to list out the files, you will notice file 007.txt does not exist here. File underscore 007 is here, but file 007.txt has moved up one directory. So if I go cd space ... to go back up one directory, I list it out, and you'll notice our file is right there. Now what if from here I wanted to move this file into my pictures directory? Same thing, I can do move file tab complete, and I type in the location I want to send it to. So in this case, I'm not moving up a directory, I'm moving it into the pictures directory. So I can just type in pic tab complete, and then enter. You may notice that sometimes when you tab complete, it's going to append this little slash here. Technically, that is the correct syntax, but it'll work without the syntax, or sorry, with the slash there. This just means it is moving it into a directory. It's there for completeness. So if I do ls again, you'll notice my file 007.txt file is not there. Now what if I want to list out the files within pictures without going into pictures? Right, so normally maybe we do cd space pictures, and that would take us into pictures, and then we would type in ls like that, and then we could see it. Instead, I can just type in ls space pictures, and that will list out the contents of pictures. Now, how can I remove a file without going into that directory? Same thing. I have to specify the directory and the file name. So I'm going to type in pwd. I am in home Cybertrack. I list out my documents here, and the file should be in pictures. So file 007.txt is in pictures. If I do rm for remove, this is a new command. We're going to type in rm and then, rm space capital pictures. And from here, I can actually type out the file name. And I'll just tab complete it again. So file 007.txt. So right here I'm saying remove this file, but I know where it's at. It's in the pictures directory, which is right here. And then under the pictures directory, that file is there. So if I do remove, I type in my working directory again. And if I go into pictures and do ls, you'll notice it's gone. I hope this is making sense here. So we're moving files, we're deleting files, changing directories up and down. So it's pretty easy so far. What if we wanted to move a file somewhere? I think we already talked about that actually. So what if we wanted to copy a file? Let's go to Documents, and let's go ahead and say we wanted to copy file 1 up a directory. So without moving it, I can actually copy the file up a directory. So I'll do cp for copy, and I'll type in file 1.txt, and then I'll move it up one directory like this. And I can leave the slash off, or I can leave it on there. So if I go up one directory, and I do ls again, you'll notice that I copied the file here. But also in Documents, if I do ls, the file is still there. So it's done exactly what we asked it to do. We copy the file. How do we rename a file? We'll actually use the same command move to rename a file. So if I wanted to rename this file 1.txt to pizza, I could do move file 1.txt to pizza.txt. So if I type in ls again, you'll notice file 1 is gone, but now pizza is there. So file 1 has been renamed to pizza.txt. So we've covered all of these commands. These are all the basic Linux commands that you will be using on a daily basis. These are very common commands. So I talked a little bit about file paths here for a little bit. So you'll notice you saw something like this. It was home, and then a username, which in our case was Cybertrack, and then certain file names or additional directories under it. So in this case, this is called the directory path. This is the location where you're currently in. So in this case, it's home, Bob, documents. And then the last part is the name of the file. So if there is a report.pdf file within Bob's documents folder, this would be the full file path to the document report.pdf. And this part, this is actually important. This is called the root of the file system. So if I do cd space root and I type in pwd, I'm actually here. This is the root of the file system. I cannot go back any further. Remember before, if we scroll up just a little bit, we were in home Cybertrack right there. So essentially we went up Cybertrack, we went up home, and now we're at the root directory. So this is going to be an important concept. So that brings us to something called absolute file path and relative file path. What I've been doing so far by navigating the file system here, so pwd, and then going into pictures, this is called a relative file path because relative to my current location, which is home Cybertrack pictures, I am changing locations, I am copying files based on my current location. So this points to a specific, so for relative file path, it points to the location of a directory or a file using the current directory as a reference. So based on where we're currently at. Also, a relative path, it's referred to as a non-absolute path. That's not super important. But the main difference between a relative file path and an absolute file path points to the specific location in a file system, regardless of where you're at. So let's say within our pictures directory, we had a file. Let's go ahead and call it cat.jpg. So I list that out, and we have a cat.jpg file. There's nothing inside of it. What if I were, so if I do cd root, that takes me to the root of the file system. The absolute path to this file, in order to list it out, I would have to go cd, or let's see. So I'm just going to type out the whole file path here. This command is not going to do anything by itself, but it's going to be home cybertrack / pictures / cat.jpg. So this is the absolute file path. It gives the full path from the root directory to the exact location in the file system where that file is. This is going to be super important when we're scripting or when we're telling someone else the location of a file. Think about it this way. If I go back to my home directory, so cd space -home cybertrack, and from here I type in my working directory. If I said, hey, my cat.jpg picture is in pictures, right? No one knows where this pictures directory is. Is it relative to their home directory, from the root directory? I mean, there are thousands of different directories on the Linux file system. So how does someone know that this pictures directory is in here? They don't, and so that's why you have to tell them it is in home cybertrack pictures cat.jpg. So that's the difference. Relative file paths are useful when we're navigating the file system. Absolute paths are good when we need to tell someone where the specific file is located. We can also use those in scripts. So here's another example here. So we've got home, Bob, desktop, homework, class 1, and homework1.txt. In this case, we've given the absolute file path to the homework1.txt file. So like we talked about, it's good when you're telling someone where a file is. We can create scripts accessing specific files. And this is also good for when you know exactly where you want to navigate to. So let's say I was in let's say I was here for some reason. I was in home/Jack. So I'm in Jack's home directory. We'll talk about home directories a lot more later. But if I wanted to go to pictures cat in Cybertrack's directory, how could I get there from here? A couple ways. I can use the absolute file path. So if I knew exactly where the file was, I can go cd space home cybertrack capital pictures, and that would take me to the pictures directory where the cat.jpg file was. Now another way. Let me show you the relative version of this. So if I did something like this, cd space ... currently I'm in home -jack. So I go up a directory. So that takes me to home. And remember, in home, Cybertrack resides there. So I can actually type in cd, go up a directory, and then go into the directory Cybertrack, and then pictures. And then the file cat.jpg would be there. This is the relative version of this, because you'll notice I'm going up and down into a directory based on my current location. So this is relative, this is absolute. A short trick to remember if something is relative or absolute, see if the file path starts with a slash. If it starts with a slash, it's going to be absolute. If it doesn't start with a slash, which is this case, it's going to be a relative file path generally. So in this relative path example here, this homework directory is based on our current directory. If the file or directory doesn't exist based on our current directory, it won't be able to find it. So let's go back to home jack and let's list this out. Or actually, let's go to a directory called -etc. You don't need to know what this is right now. But if I wanted to go into Cybertrack's picture directory, let's say I type in pictures, it's going to say no such file or directory. Why? Because I'm currently in this etc directory, often pronounced as etsy. Then I can actually type in the absolute file path, so cd home Cybertrack pictures, and then it works. So based on your current location, you need to know where different directories are. I hope this is making sense. Absolute and relative file paths are very important to understand. So here's a comparison. So we've got homework and homework 1. This is a relative path. Notice how it doesn't start with the slash. Then we've got the full absolute path. This is going to start with a slash, and it tells you exactly where in the file system that file is, regardless of whatever location you're in. Okay, let's move on to the last part. So we're going to talk about data viewing and writing commands. So how do we preview files in Linux? There are a couple commands that I'm going to go over here. The first one is called less. So let's go ahead and use the program less, L-E-S-S space auth. This allows us to preview a file. My screen is going to change here in just a second. I hit enter, and we see this text file. Now, how can we navigate here? A couple ways. To go line by line, I can use the down arrow on my keyboard, or I can use the up arrow on my keyboard. If I want to go page by page, I can hit the spacebar, and that's going to page me down one page at a time. And you'll notice I've hit the end of the file here. In order to get out of this less screen, you'll notice at the bottom there's like this little end thing. If I type in Q, it's going to exit out of the less program. Less is a great program when you want to view a large file, but you don't necessarily want to open it or edit it, things like that. So it's good for previewing. What if you wanted to view just the top 10 lines of a file? Now I can type in head, which just gives me the header of the file, so the top 10 lines by default, and auth.log. And you'll notice my output's a little bit cleaner. I can get a preview for what the contents of the file are. So head is great for previewing files, generally log files, things like that. What if I wanted to see the last 10 lines of the file? I can type in tail space auth.log, and it gives me the last 10 lines of a file. Also good for viewing log files, getting the most recent information. New information is always appended to the bottom of a file generally. Now here's another one. I'm going to teach you a command called echo and cat. So another one, So if I type in echo, I type in double quotes, hello world, and I close it and just hit enter, it just prints it out to the screen here. It doesn't really do anything. So in Linux, there's always an output for your command, and it has to go somewhere. So in this case, I'm typing echo hello world, and the output is being sent to the terminal so we can see it. What if I wanted to send it to a screen or a new file? I can type in echo hello world, and I can use something called a redirect into a new file. Let's go ahead and make a new file right here. So the program echo will actually create a new file if it doesn't exist. So let's go ahead and call it my file.txt. And you'll notice it doesn't print out hello world to the terminal now. It prints it out into this file. So if I wanted to use head my file, I'll get the top 10 lines, but there's only one line in there. I can use less to type in my file, and then I can preview the file, but less is a little bit overkill when we're just viewing a small text file here. So I hit Q. There's something better for smaller text files, and that is cat. So if I type in cat, short for concatenate, I type in my file, and it prints out the contents of the entire file right here. It's really good for short stuff. It can clutter your terminal a little bit, so you have to make a decision on, is this a larger file? Yes, I'm going to use less. Is it a short file, very small file? I'm going to use cat. How do I know if it's a big or a small file? I can use head to preview it. Echo can send text to the terminal, or it can send it into a file. Now what if I do this? I type in echo, my name is Matt, into my file. So this is the same file we created earlier. I'm going to echo this into here. Now, what if I wanted to add another line to the end of it? Let's go ahead and cat out my file and see what we did. You'll notice it didn't add a line. It actually replaced the entire file with my name is Matt. If we want to append something, sorry, and I'll show you another cool shortcut. If you hit the up arrow on your keyboard, you can actually go through your previous commands here. You can use the down arrow to go back. So I'm going to go up 2 commands, and then I can use my left arrow key to change this command. So I'm going to use the append key, and I'm going to type in my name is Bob. And so this double redirect does not overwrite a file, it appends to a file. Anytime you use this, it will overwrite the entire file if there was anything in it. Only use this when you're sure that you want to overwrite a file or if it's a new file. So if I do cat my file again, you'll notice there's a new line added. My name is Bob. Okay, and I can also hit the up arrow again, and let's type in Sally. And let's append that to my file.txt. Then I can go ahead and cat out the contents of the file. And we've got my name is Bob, my name is Matt, my name is Sally. Okay, so that is what I want to cover here for today in the text viewing and also Linux file navigation. If you have any questions about this, go ahead and put them in the comment section. I'll do my best to get to all your questions here. Stay tuned for next time, and we'll get into some more Linux stuff here.